Hey guys, DragonFireCDN on the camera. Welcome to a Space Engineers tutorial video on how to build a custom bowl turret. This is one of the most popular turrets in Space Engineers currently, as of today. So, I'm going to show you all how to build one. So, getting straight to the point, you'll need a conveyor, obviously, to be built for connection for ammunition, etc, etc. And you want to start with the advanced rotor, which has an access port beneath it, so that you can, obviously you can make your ammunition flow into the turret. So you'll build your advanced rotor. Alright, so obviously you need your components from the build planner. And you'll just weld this whole thing up. You know, it's a normal thing. So, weld up the rotor, the head of the rotor, so that transfers resources through from the conveyor into the rotor, up into the rotor head, which is where the inventory is stored. Obviously there's no inventory specifically for the rotor. I don't know why I have items in my inventory, but oh well. So then you'll want to build a hinge on the top portion here. Now, something important to note about the hinge is that there, when fully constructed, are little grooves that sort of explain things, which I'll show you in a few moments. First of all, you want to get rid of this hinge part. Don't want that. Because, of course, with the hinge part right there in the middle, it's not a good idea to have that, because it basically makes it impossible to build a small grid bowl turret. Anyway, so you see these grooves here, right? These basically tell you the orientation direction of the hinge, which in turn will correspond to your turret's direction. So this is the back of the hinge, or I think this is the negative direction of the hinge, and this is the positive direction of the hinge. This just tells you, oh, this is the back half of the hinge, you know? So if you built your turret so that it fired from that end as forwards, then basically it would invert the turret's controls if you were to use it manually. It doesn't matter if you use the turret normally, like as an actual turret, and not manually controlling turrets like some weird person. I don't know why anybody manually controls turrets, because you have to fly your ship, unless you have like a huge team of people to do multiplayer. But yeah, just keep in mind that it inverts the controls of your turret. Anyway, moving on from that. So in order to build the bowl turret, we need a small grid hinge block piece here. Now unfortunately, when you go into the control menu for the hinge, it builds the large version of the small block system. I'll show you what I mean right now if I can find it. Hinge, here, add small head. It gives you the large 3x3 small head. You want the 1x1 small head, right? Now the 1x1 small head you can't build normally, so in order to do this, and I did find this online as like a really cool way, so you just need a rotor, doesn't matter which one obviously, just need a rotor. Take the top half of the rotor off, you don't have to weld that. So you go to that rotor, rotor lock, add small head, which gives you this tiny little 1x1 rotor head, right? So from here, you have to build just a single block. It doesn't matter really how this is done. And you find your hinge, and you put your hinge on the top there. Now you've got to weld this up. Now the reason we're doing this is for Clang reasons, because if you attempt to do what we're going to do in a few moments without this little hinge dude here to save you from Clang, basically what happens is all hell breaks loose. This little hinge dude will basically save you from Clang in the sense that it reduces the grid tension and saves you from a bunch of problems that come from grid work. Anyway, so building off of this hinge, we need a scaffold piece coming out like this, and we're just gonna build down until we are one block from the middle of our hinge here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to find our hinge again. Here we go. And we get the hinge part. Hinge part, please. Thank you. Alright, so we get our hinge part. We need it to be facing, obviously, like this. And if we put that right in the middle, like so, our little hinge dude will be right in the middle. And then we go to the control panel of our hinge. You can see we've got both of these hinges. We just look at the one that's not attached, and we attach that hinge. Now it puts immediate tension on everything. If we didn't have that hinge right there in the middle, it would clang like mad. You notice he's like shuddering a tiny bit. Obviously, if that hinge wasn't there, this would probably be over there, that ice lake. So now what we do is we weld up our little hinge dude here. We go grab these components. So we weld up our little hinge guy. Gotta actually get to it. My jetpack fuel's almost out, so let's weld him up. And then we detach the top half of that. See, it's sprung back up there. Again, Clang isn't too happy about us doing this. So we're gonna, yeah, you know what, screw it. We're gonna get rid of all of that. And now we just get rid of our hinge pieces, this big rotor. So this is essentially the beginnings of our bolt turret. Now this is pretty much all we need for our bolt turret here. There's nothing else really that we have to do. Except now we come up here and we boop boop and boop for conveyors. We need that. Now we need the conveyors like this, because otherwise we would have difficulties getting our guns to work properly. So we're going to save my jetpack fuel from running out. So that's essentially the front of our bolt turret constructed. The reason we build it up is so it can rotate all the way down there and all the way down there. Obviously out in those two directions, because the hinge only has a 90-degree rotation radius, and it's a bit unfortunate, but it does make life a little bit harder if you don't build it. So we're going to use the autocannons because this is the most popular weapon for the bolt turret. Autocannon there, autocannon here, autocannon here. Now I can't get past that, so we're going to sneak our way past, and autocannon there. And we're going to take all the components for that. I'm going to grab that and weld up these autocannons. Beautiful stuff. As simple as, oh, I just fell into the crevice that I made before I made the video, because, you know, I couldn't weld that. So, now we have our autocannons built. Starting to look a bit like those bolt turrets that you would normally see on the great land of the internet. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself an access ramp because I'm a lazy person and I don't want to go all the way back to the place that I got all my hydrogen from. So we're going to weld up this block here. Now this is just a bit of armoring, preferably heavy armor, because light armor locks suck with small ships. Like heavy armor is like the best, and if you're building a turret, obviously large ship turret, huge ship, couldn't care less because heavy armor locks on small ships weigh like nothing. Anyway, so about that groove being the back of the turret and everything, we're going to line this camera up perfectly so that it sort of stays the orientation, because when you connect all of this with the turret controller, the camera states the orientation of the turret. So whatever the camera's orientation is will basically be like, hey, this is what's up and down for the turret. So see that little camera riding at the top? It's really terrible because I have my graphics on a low quality for performance purposes, but basically camera written at the top of the camera has to be facing where the back of the turret will be. So that states the top of the turret and the bottom of the turret. I'm waving my hands around like you can see. Basically the top of the turret and the bottom of the turret there is important, because if it was controls, if it was this way round, then the controls would be inverted. However, if it was this way round, the controls are normal. Makes sense? I know. Doesn't make sense to me either. But that's how it works for some reason. So basically, it has to be orientated with the back being the front and the front being the back. It's weird. So get our camera. Do that. And now we weld up our camera. What? That's some weird hitbox right there. Okay. Anyways, so now that we have our camera, everything's online. This isn't going to work just yet because we need the turret controller. Well, actually no. There's just one very important thing that you want to know, other than the size difference, because obviously the small grid custom turret block is like this, and the big one is like huge. But something important to note: the large grid turret controller has a total turret aiming radius of 800 meters, where the small turret controller has only a maximum of 600 meters. So obviously if you're running a large ship that has a lot of mobility and a lot of thrusting capabilities, and it can do circles around your enemies, or if you're fighting a slow target, then of course you can use the small turret controller. Obviously if you have too little room for a large turret controller, you can use the small ones as well. Or if you just want each turret to be controlled by each turret and not have vulnerability of having huge rooms filled with turret controllers and stuff. But you do lose that 200 meters of range. So obviously if you're running a big slow ship, suggestion, use these turret controllers, these large ones, because that extra 200 meters of range gives you the same range as pretty much all the turrets in the game before the Warfare update. So you have the Ranger Gatling and missile turrets, which are probably the two most dangerous turrets with regards to, like regular firing, and the most commonly used. And obviously 800 meters has always been like the pristine range, so most veteran players before the Warfare 2 update will use this 800 meters, or even 600 meters if you're really picky.
Critical.
Yeah, shut up. But for this, I'm just going to use the small turret controller because look at that. It's like a love screen. So I prefer to put this like on the back. It doesn't matter where you put it on the turret, as long as it's a small grid or a large grid. It doesn't matter where you put it at all, actually, because it always functions the same. But I'm just putting it on the turret because, cool things. So now that we have our turret controller, we can actually set up the turret to function how the turret needs to function. So our first mission here is we access the turret controller and we get all of this crazy crap that nobody really knows what's going on, right? First of all, elevation or azimuth, rotor and hinge. Elevation hinge. The elevation hinge obviously up and down, azimuth is left and right, so turning. So our azimuth rotor will be the advanced rotor, the elevation rotor will be the hinge, and we assign our camera to that. Obviously you could change the velocity, which basically changes how quickly your turret will turn. The angle deviation, which is basically like, hey, if I'm aiming at a target, this is the maximum angle that I can be pointing away from the target before I start shooting. So for instance, if it like targeted a battery on board your enemy ship, and it was all like, hey, I'm going to shoot this battery. It could still be firing at that battery 5 degrees here from the battery. Whereas obviously you change that, it means that it is more accurate, but it can cause some buggy things, so I prefer to leave this alone. We're not going to touch any of those settings anyways. So obviously here, there's all our autocannons, which we basically just be like, add to all a weapon, add to all a weapon, add to all a weapon, add to all a weapon. All our autocannons are in there. Obviously you can remove it if you set anything else. There's AI. Again, aiming radius changes. Maximum 600. Obviously maximum is minimum 0. That's useless. So you can kind of just be like, yeah, 600 meters, that works. So you can tell them to target characters. I'm not going to let that happen because it would probably try to shoot me. Because I know how turrets work. I've always known how turrets work. Turrets are painful. Hate them. So you can enable target locking, which is basically you can lock onto a target with your right mouse button when you're flying a ship, etc, etc. Target options, default weapons, propulsion, power systems, just whatever it targets. So you can tell it to just target things in the normal way, which is pretty much randomized. You can do weapon targeting only, propulsion targeting only, select thrusters, or power system targeting only, so reactors, etc, etc. Obviously you can tell it to shoot meteors, missiles, ships, basically all the regular turret controls, save for all this crap up here that's really, really weird and confusing. But probably the best part about this is when you enable the AI, your turret will now target and shoot pretty much whatever it wants now. This turret is online and active, and obviously if I was to summon a ship, which I can't do because I'm in survival mode, but if I summoned an enemy ship, this turret would start shooting it. So, just to provide us with a quick little example, I'm going to get a control station. I'm going to take ourselves a flight seat. I'm going to weld this up. Now, you do need a flight seat to do this stuff. If you use the small turret controller, if you use a large turret controller, you can control it from the turret controller itself because, you know, turret controllers and stuff. It acts as another grid. Does it? No. That's just another ship. It doesn't act as another grid. Sorry for my easy mistake there. So, we find our turret controller, and somewhere here there is a control option. Right? Hit control. Our camera automatically, with the new updates, we have this really nifty looking camera, all cool stuff here, you know, and now we basically have our turret. I don't know why it's not shooting, but it turns. We got all cool stuff, we can zoom. Why it's not shooting is beyond me. Oh, we can also do this. I don't understand why it's not working. It should be able to shoot. I see no reason for this not to be shooting. We have our weapons enabled here. Oh boy, here we go. Yeah, I'm not sure why we don't have the ability to shoot, but if I told this turret, you know what, y'all can... I told this turret, hey turret, you can target characters, and you can target friends. I hop out of here.
Critical.
Oh, I now know why it's not shooting, because I've got no ammo. This shows why I'm an idiot. Obviously if it had ammo, it would be doing its thing. You know? If it had ammunition.
Critical.
Make some ammo. Ammo. Consumables. I hate the updates here where they give you like all sorts of weird different magazines. Is that going to make itself? Or, yeah, there we go. So now, if I go to the turret controller, custom turret controller, here we go. Let's go down to control. That's better. So obviously now the turret works. Of course, I get to write this down. Okay, now we can do our thing. Now we can cause chaos. Let's go down to the control button here, and now let's cause some chaos. This Gatling turret. Look how powerful that is. Like you can tell, this is why. Like this is the reason why people love just the weapons in general. I wasn't sure why it showed me ship was being disconnected from terminal there. Basically now we go to the custom turret controller and we alter the velocity. If I set it to like 30, it's very hyper accurate, hyper sensitive type turret. Really difficult to aim at long distances, you know, that kind of stuff. I really don't know why it's saying ships being disconnected from terminal, but you know. So now we're just going to tinker. Set it to 15. And both of those is basically a very nice, simple way of just destroying your enemies, you know, causing some wonderful issues. Unfortunately, can't aim any lower than this, so it's lower than the aim. Obviously, you can do some serious damage, some weird FPS. It's just a really, really dangerous weapon. Honestly, I just destroyed that ship. There's literally nothing left because you fell off the platform. You see, and you can also shoot yourself.
Fuel critical.
Ow. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this. Obviously, you can build up the rest of your massive turret with some cool armor blocks. You know, you can make it look really nice, really cool, and you know, you can just basically say, hi, let's build up some good old protection for that big turret, and now it looks a bit cooler. You can build this all the way around and have a nice round turret base because there's just enough space just down there for your turret to say, you know, this turret can rotate 100% even if there's a couple blocks back here. Obviously, don't go overboard with the blocks because you can block your turret's rotation, but this turret in general, and as I said, by like the top and bottom sort of thing, obviously if that was facing this direction the camera would be upside down, so it would be really wonky, really weird, so you know, it's kind of like a bit confused why I didn't withdraw all the components there. So obviously if I was to take the turret and I said, hey, custom turret, wrong button again, custom turret, down here, taller weapon. Where am I? Control. And if we just rotated it like this, obviously controls are all funky and weird and inverted and everything's upside down. And if I leave the turret here,
Fuel
if I
critical.
share, you can see the camera's upside down. Obviously, if we had it the other way around, it would have that kind of funky controls the entire time, which obviously nobody wants because when you're using like a custom turret, if you're doing like a roleplay thing where your custom turret had like a really, really cool like piloting seat where your dude was like, hey, you know, I'm really cool, I'm really awesome, I can do all these cool things, and he just sits in his seat and starts shooting like military style, you know, like when they're all sat in the shed and stuff. Let's blow up a bit of a deterrent fighter, because why not? But yeah, this is a very powerful turret. Obviously, getting in the way of these autocannons, even large ships. Like this station's obviously it's a large ship grid. It's a large grid. Look at the damage. Yeah, just casually rip open a hole in the hull of any ship. You know, even heavy armor doesn't like it.
Fuel critical.
If I go get heavy armor block here, and I build like a wall, I guess, of heavy armor here, and I'm like, you know what, hi, 6 components there, all to the build planner, just put these components in here, withdraw them all over time here, you know, you just grab all these different components out of here, all components successfully withdrawn, and you just sort of weld these up and all sorts of that. Just that really cool junk. And I'll show you just what I mean. It's really awesome. These weapons do way more damage than they should. Obviously they don't mean nothing because these turrets are weak in general, like one single rocket can destroy them. But from the experience here that I've had in these turrets, if you access your seat, go back up to your turret controller, you smack control here. Let's destroy this one. This is heavy armor. Now I'm not saying it's overpowered, but it's overpowered. This kind of stuff. This is just why I've just gone straight through 6 heavy armor blocks in what, like under 15 seconds. Like it's just not to be messed with. You just don't mess with these kinds of things. It's just destructive. It's like the range and accuracy of these weapons is so great. I'm destroying stuff from miles away. It's insane. Like, yes, there's bullet drop. Like, you can see that weird bullet drop where you just like, pew. And you see the bullets going miles down, but just the strength that this turret has, and the fact that it can really aim real high. Like, obviously having one of these for like base coverage and defense. Like if I had drones enabled and drones were coming to kill us, I could shoot them all down with this turret manually. And of course the camera zoom makes life really nice because you can scout your planets from your base. All jokes aside though, this turret really, it's an amazing weapon. Just don't mess with it. That's all I can say. Just don't mess with the turrets, man. Not to be messed with. Anyway, so I thank you all for watching this episode of Space Engineers, this brand new episode of Space Engineers, and I will see you all in the next one. So, yeah. Bye-bye! Well, I'm dead.